Welcome to Henry VIII and his 6 Wives History Project. This is Henry. These are his wives. Okay. This would be Catherine of Aragon. She divorced Henry. More on her later. This would be Anne Boleyn. She was beheaded. This is Jane Seymour. She died of natural causes. This is Anne of Cleves. This is Anne of Cleves.
Stupid fucking spectators!
This is Anne of Cleves. She divorced Henry. This is Catherine Howard. She was beheaded by Henry. This is Catherine Parr. She outlived Henry, so she is the only real winner. Henry VIII, as a child, dreamt of being a chivalrous knight. He enjoyed this. Yes. But he knew he could never be king because of his older brother, Arthur.
When Henry was just a lad, he enjoyed to idolise his friends, and he used to duel regularly with Edmund de la Pole. He grown to be a very good dueler, but Edmund would always come back to win the eventual fight.
However, in 1501, Henry VII's first son, Arthur, tragically died, leaving Catherine of Aragon with no husband. But then, Henry VIII went and married Catherine of Aragon, who was to be his first queen.
Henry became a very powerful king and occasionally liked to wander the villages on his carriage.
Yeah. In order to in-depthly understand the situation with Henry and all 6 of his wives, we feel the need to consult a true expert in this specific field. Please, may I introduce the expert?
Hi there.
So, can you tell me more about Henry's second wife specifically and Henry's attitudes towards things?
Henry was a big and handsome man, and he wore fine clothes. But most important to him, he wanted to rule England with power. And the king.
That's so interesting. So, at what point did he marry his second wife, which is the crux of the information?
Oh, but you're going to have to pause it.
Henry was pleased about becoming king. When he was king, he put the crown on his head and was very pleased about it. To show Henry's pleasement. And then he became king and got married. But then, because of his lust for Anne Boleyn, he wanted to annul his marriage. This task he placed upon Wolsey. Wolsey attempted to annul the marriage.
No, Henry will have my back in this argument.
However, he failed, and Henry was not amused. Henry succeeded in annulling the marriage himself. Can you continue a conversation about the birth And second and third, so forth.
Yes. Catherine of Aragon, she was on a bike once that rode fast in about 1509 and got married to Henry about that time. She was daughter to the King of Spain. This created a great alliance, and she had a daughter called Mary, but unfortunately had no sons. Later on, Henry decided to use this as a way of getting his legitimacy for the divorce that he so wanted. But by the time that was all coming around, she was too old.
Henry's infatuation for Catherine of Aragon had grown stilted, which inspired him to seek an annulment. When achieved, he then found the object of lust, Anne Boleyn. They occasionally walked on beautiful Sunday mornings and enjoyed each other, but right, just cut there. So what really fascinates me is the second wife, the annulment, and everything that happened around that period.
Right, well, in 1533, he divorced Catherine of Aragon after getting an annulment from the Pope when he made himself head of the Church of England, not in England because they just broke themselves away from the Roman Church. It's what he wanted, it gained him more power, and he could marry his mistress Anne Boleyn. As again, that was in 1533. Henry was passed one beautiful day, and she was a young and pretty witty woman.
I see. So I guess it was more her love for Anne that more than anything that drove to this marriage.
It was family. She had one daughter, Elizabeth, which we all know later to be Elizabeth I. But unfortunately, Henry grew suspicious of her love for him, and that he thought he was cheating on her.
Because Anne was so beautiful and voluptuous, Henry grew jealous of other men, which led him to execute her. I'm leaving you sluts. So moving on to the next one, because we're live here.
Okay. Well, she was beheaded in 1536, Anne Boleyn, and after she died there was some suspicion that she was a witch because she had some funny things apparently.
Oh yes.
The funny things.
I remember the ones.
As mentioned, Anacleves did eventually marry Henry in 1540 after some form of dispute. The marriage made some form of link between England and Germany, which is ironic due to the 1940s, the war, as everyone knows.
Yeah.
Jack.
Henry VIII would regularly have walks with his next wife, who was Anna Cleves. However, she was considered to be extremely ugly, and this led to her eventual downfall.
No. And she was ugly, so Henry divorced her.
This led to Henry marrying Jane Seymour, who is thought to be the only wife that he loved. This is because he really, really fancied her.
As mentioned before, Jane Seymour, he married her 11 days after beheading Anna Cleves, the ugly one. The German sweaty one that we all talked about before.
Which is interesting.
Yes. Well, moving on from that, he did indeed gain an heir, but unfortunately this came at a terrible price. He lost Jane Seymour in childbirth, which was a tragic and horrible time for Henry as he loved her the most for giving her this heir.
Unfortunately, she died in childbirth.
Edward!
It was soon after the birth, to be frank. It was in 1537 that she unfortunately passed away.
I see. Which brings us on to...
Which does indeed bring us on to Catherine Howard.
Henry then married Catherine Howard. She was 29 years younger than him. Unfortunately, after being dreadfully unfaithful, Henry executed her. Yes, bring on the next wife. She
she married Henry in 1840, and she was 20 at the time, while Henry was 49. So you could see, as an old, insecure man, he was jealous of maybe males walking in and out of her life. She was accused of being unfaithful, and Henry executed her.
It wouldn't be a surprise that she was so young than that. There's a 29-year age gap between them. It's just ridiculous.
So yeah, she was executed in 1542, which is very fascinating because it brings us on to the next wife. 1543, Henry married his last wife, Catherine Parr. She was very caring and looked after Henry's children very well. She outlived Henry, who died eventually.
And that indeed was Catherine Parr. She liked family life, along with Henry. As you can see, Henry was a proud man. He loved to walk, straddle, and walk and straddle, and she indeed looked after Henry's children. I mean, there was Elizabeth, Mary, and now Edward, the youngest, but still the heir to the throne above all the girls. She did indeed outlive Henry. Henry came to his death in that year of 1703, and this affected the whole outcome of the Tudors, effectively ending it until Edward the son decided to take the throne.
Which brings us to the end of Henry and this fascinating documentary. Right, we need loads of footage of Chambers now.